Hey everybody, it's Word Balloon and John Suntress. A couple show notes before we get started. Questions or comments about the show, john@wordballoon.com is my email address. You may want to scroll down because you might have missed a couple great episodes from the last week or so. People like Tim Seeley, Wonder Woman, Susan Eisenberg from Justice League Unlimited, Frank Conniff from Mystery Science Theater 3000. My buddy Steve Bryant has a Kickstarter on our crime comic The Catch. A new Bendis tapes is in there. Also, my buddy Julianne Emery, the actress, talks about the new season of Bosch debuting Friday on Amazon Prime. Also, Declan Shelby and my buddy DC publicist, editor, and First Comics, Mike Gold, a great two-parter about the Bronze Age. I hope you'll check those all out. And as always, thank you very much for listening to the show all the way through. Thank you for listening to the commercials. It's one of the ways that I get paid. There might be one more commercial before we start the show. If there is, hang in there, and we'll be back in a few seconds with more great Word Balloon programming. Thanks for your attention. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Word Balloon. Welcome to the working week. It's John Suntress here, and man, I've got a great episode for you today. Grant Morrison, Liam Sharp, the Green Lantern team are together to discuss the book, observations of putting it together, bringing back old characters, designing new characters. It's a multiverse as far as what they've been dealing with. They've just started their second arc, the New Guardians, the Young Guardians, and we talk a bit about that, but we really do spend a lot of time talking about the first 12 issues of this incredible series that is collected in 2 graphic novels and obviously available for you to purchase online through DC Comics, and it's great. I mean, everything they've said about it, it's true. It's an amazing sci-fi adventure, but at the same time, a very grounded police procedural, and really get inside of Hal Jordan, and he has to face a lot of aspects of his character and dealing with old friends and old enemies and new enemies alike, and it's fantastic. So we talk and have a great conversation, and I hope you'll enjoy it today. Grant Morrison, Liam Sharp, on today's Word Balloon, brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you greatly, League, for your support during these tough times via Patreon. If you like Word Balloon and want to subscribe and can't afford it, because again, I know it's a tough economic time, can you spare $1 a month? Is it worth the price of a comic book a month? If you think so, if you can swing it, go to patreon.com/wordballoon or click on the Patreon ad on the front page of wordballoon.com. But thank you greatly for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon is also brought to you by Aftershock Comics. Aftershock is right there with you, reminding you to check in with your local store, see what they have in their back catalog as far as Aftershock books go, and also make sure you go online and check out the full inventory of Aftershock, because all their books are available digitally. Great books from Marguerite Bennett and Tim Seeley and Cullen Bunn, old favorites like Paul Jenkins and Phil Hester and Brian Azzarello, new friends like Matthew Klickstein and Stephanie Phillips, genre-bending things that deserve your attention. Go to their website, you'll find full story descriptions, preview pages, and the diamond books on how to order these through your local shop or online at AftershockComics.com. I should point out that we did a phone conference where all of us are on the phone, so the sound quality is not what you're listening to right now. It's a notch under, but it's still very clear. I mean, you've heard phone conversations on the radio before. It's at that level, and still a great conversation, worth the content. Here are Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp on today's Word Balloon. Liam Sharp, Grant Morrison, welcome to Word Balloon. Guys, seriously, thank you very much for doing this. Long time coming talking to you both, and thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
I must ask, going back to, just you guys getting together on this project, how did you two find each other? Grant, I'm assuming obviously the idea started with you, but why Liam?
Well, again, we found each other like 20 or 30 years ago, going back to the old days of the British comic scene. Excuse me. But we just never found anything to work on, and we kept kind of bumping into each other, and it just got more and more like it was really obvious the universe was pushing us into rooms together. So we just kind of have to talk about doing something. And it really just got to the point where, hey, we're meeting up every 6 months now. It's becoming more and more ridiculous. It's like, the Buck's law of increasing frequency. So it kind of got to that kind of point of no return. And then Dan DiDio at dinner, which he would do to me often, was pitched something, say, would you like to do Green Lantern? I'd be totally not interested, but what if you did this? And then he'd say, would you like to do it with Liam? And I'd go, okay, that could be cool. So kind of from my side of it, it came from there, and I'm sure Liam's got his own take on it, but that's how I got involved in it, and how our streams finally crossed.
Yeah, mine's pretty much the same. It sort of reached critical mass, and we just kept banging into each other. It was inevitable. and
it was like particle collisions, wasn't it? It was like I had to lead to an atomic explosion of sheer creativity.
Yeah. Literally, life as we knew it was in danger if we didn't work together. So there would have been an implosion.
Well, this is meant as a compliment. I hope you guys take it as such. But you guys have taken Green Lantern to kind of the heavy metal magazine level. I remember as a kid being blown away seeing the designs that the great artists like Gil Kane would give to the core, and the crazy ideas of various planets represented and aliens represented. And truly, I think you guys are taking it to a new level. So tell me about, I'm correct, right? There are new lanterns as well as maybe lanterns we hadn't seen in years.
Yeah, well, a lot of the stuff, from my side of it, I'll go back and look at, I kind of like the idea of it takes place in the DC universe, so let's kind of consolidate that. So I'll go and find goofy-looking aliens from 1950s stories or from 90s Superboy and the Ravers, and we throw things like that in there. But what Liam's really brilliant at, and there's very few artists, honestly, who are just really great at doing creatures and aliens and alien environments. So we take advantage of that as well. And there's a whole bunch of new characters, I think, and characters that Liam really brought to life by thinking them through. But yeah, it's been for me, it's a mix of trying to make it feel like a lived-in, worn-out DC universe where you might catch sight of a character from Strange Adventures in 1960, or you might catch sight of a character from, some Superman crossover in 2000. So it's a mix of both of them, and I think, like I say, Liam's got this facility for creating environments and creatures and aliens that's really, it's rare and unique.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Grant. It is something I get a lot of pleasure out of, and I think some of that comes from my sort of training with Don Lawrence, who is a master of imaginative world building.
Okay.
But I always like but again, because of that, my influences come from Europe and England and America. And Grant said at the beginning, it's almost like American comics, European comics, and English comics got together and had a threesome, and this is the strange hybrid offspring of all of those different flavors.
Yeah. I'm sorry I had to reduce it to that, but yeah,
but it's so spot on. It's so on the nose.
Was Volko? Is Volko a new character? The Volcano Lantern?
No, he's quite an old one.
No, he was a guy created by. You want to take it up, Liam? He was created by Kevin O'Neill, I believe, and Mike Barr, or was it one of the other ones?
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. It was Kev's version that I saw first, so it was great when he appeared in it. But we did talk about how.
Yeah, or it might have been Joe Staton. I mean, I don't know. I want to make sure everyone gets their due, but it was from that era. Yeah. I just love the design. I love the crazy lanterns, like that first story where Gil Kane does the vegetable guy and he does the crystal guy.
Yeah.
The first time you'd seen those alien lanterns, and I just love that aspect of the series where you have these completely alien characters and they bring so much to it in terms of character and design.
Yeah, when I first drew him, he had the cloud head, and my wife came in and started chuckling and said, "I love his face." And I said, "What face?" She said, "He's got a face. Look in the cloud." And I saw it, and it's like, "Oh my God, I hadn't even intended it," but that's how he got the face. And I was talking to Grant about it, and Grant says, "Oh, just imagine the concentration it takes to keep that little face on the cloud." And
yeah, he's working hard. There's a lot of thermonuclear processing, But I loved it as well because people would say, "What the hell is this? How could these guys are nuts? They're on mushrooms. How could they come up with a character like this?" And we just kind of this is the lore. This is the universe we've inherited, and it's filled with these really weird characters. And all we've done is bring some of them to the fore, and then create new ones that we think fit in with that weird kind of menagerie feel.
Yeah, the slave trade is at the door in the next issue as well. That was giving them extra sort of joints in their limbs and stuff. And I love Grant would say, "Oh, look back at the original versions because they're wearing like shorts. They're dressed like scouts, Boy Scouts." And you look at the characters and say, "How do you come up with this character got a little cap on and shorts?" And it's like, "Yeah, do that, but add extra like joints."
These kind of like deck chair boys on a cruise liner, and it's so weird, And I think that's much creepier and much more nightmarish than the kind of bulked up Kanjaro and the Dorians later for the big ass kind of shark looking guys. But the original creepy crawly versions were better. So I think Liam went back to those and then developed them, and like we say, give him more limb joints, give him more knees than normal. And it plays up that aspect of it. But I think also those ideas for some of the just goofy old designs, if you take them seriously and think, no, this is an alien culture, this is their art, this is their clothing, they wear deck shorts. Why would they wear deck shorts? Who knows? But it kind of gives the real feeling of alienness, I think,
Yeah.
Well, it's true. You go on, Liam, by all means.
Oh no! I laughed so hard during that issue that all the fingers, the extra fingers, the extra joints. You could sort of see them constantly writhing, and the eyes sort of shutting and opening with those sideways. And there's just so many things like he had a kind of Squidward feel as well, which was funny, But that's part of the joy of this whole book is every issue I get something to laugh at and something to be inspired by that's kind of epic and soaring, and something to think about, and something that is just a thrill to draw, that really pulls you into the world building side of it as well, and that's pretty much across every issue. So it's a complete kind of joy to do,
And yet at the same time, I love again another comparison, the Hush feel to this story, because you're certainly calling back on, bringing, great GL team-up characters like Ollie, obviously, Green Arrow, the parallel version of Carol Ferris and Star Sapphire, and then also just the way you guys are really going for these great characters that we haven't seen in a couple of years. Beyond, like you said, the Vegetable Lantern, absolutely. But some of the other guest stars that are maybe C-level characters in the DC universe, but have great designs. It's great to see them back.
Yeah, well, that's what we'd like to do. It's part of the fun is that it is a universe and it's kind of coherent and it has a history. So there's a lot of stuff to draw on, and I always find that the stuff that's been overlooked for a while is the most interesting because you can bring more to it. And so much of the mythos gets mined, so you have to look in really odd places to find things that nobody thought about or that spark the imagination in different ways.
It's true. I think you get to play more with characters like that. You're not treading on so many toes, so you can be really, wild with your interpretations.
I loved, Liam, your new design for Airwave. I loved Airwave. He hit me at the right time as a kid.
I didn't do that one.
Oh, excuse me. Oh, you see, there you go. The runner stumbles. Well, then, Grant, I appreciate you bringing Airwave into the story because.
No, you're welcome.
Yeah, name check the artist for me, Grant. Shame on me for not doing it properly.
Oh, Don, you're making it worse for me. Please.
Oh, geez. All right. Well, then I'll correct it in the post.
I can check it. Well, I can barely remember my own name. Hang on.
Yeah, no, I
keep talking. I'll find it.
Well, all right. I'll continue to say how much I love that character. I remember him guest starring in Superman, and him remembering all the lessons he learned from older heroes, not only
it was Giuseppe Camuncoli. Sorry.
That's all right, buddy. No.
No, someone said to me, "Oh, it's
but no. I like those old kind of characters who hang about the corners and still have their costumes, and they haven't done anything for a while. Because, like Liam said, you can do things with them. You can modernise them in ways that the really iconic characters can't ever really be modernised.
Well, and also just the idea of it, the story kind of ending back at home, and where you take Hal from being uncomfortable on Earth, obviously much more comfortable in his role as Green Lantern space cop, and then having to face this final story of your first 12 issues or 10 issues, excuse me. I think 12 issues. But yeah, bringing him back home and having to solve a problem, and that the Jordan family had to solve it.
Yeah, and in that story, I mean, the joke in the story was that they were just having to make up a ridiculous tale to explain to the parents. And I wanted to show Hal's always on the side of the kids. He's a non-conformist, whatever anyone else thinks. He's that guy. So he's on the side of the kids, and he's in their pitch, and he's making up some bullshit to fool the parents.
Outstanding, man. Well, and then again, the parallel lanterns. I love just that whole Earth of that the Justice League basically and other characters are all Green Lanterns and stuff. Now, was that in Multiplicity?
No, I mean, it was kind of hinted at that there was a lot of different Green Lanterns on different worlds, because we've seen a bunch of them, and there's a bunch of other ones. So it was just a case of putting them all together. I always had this big idea of a Green Lantern from across the multiverse, a kind of extension of the main core. So it was just to float that. But yeah, the Carol character, she's back in season 2, the kind of alternate Carol. Right. We've got this really interesting kind of Shakespearean, and I'll call it Shakespearean only in the sense that it's a case of a lot of different mistaken identities and doubles crossing over. But yeah, she's coming back. We like that character.
Yeah, I loved doing Magic Lantern was so much fun in particular. And he of all the cosplay that's been inspired by this particular run, he's the one I've seen most often. He's
but he's easy to do. That's exactly. Come on, try harder, guys. He's so easy to do.
Yeah, I want to see a Volk with a working head.
Amen, absolutely, man. Yeah, Magic Lantern, I think half the people that attend conventions just, let their hair grow a little bit longer and maybe not clean their glasses, and you got Magic Lantern, basically. I love it.
After about a month on deadline.
Grant, honestly, that is such a quintessential Grant Morrison character, Magic Lantern. I'm not surprised when he appeared. It was like, oh, there we go. I mean, you already had us in a Grant Morrison state of mind, but man, when Magic Lantern showed up, it was like, oh, there we go.
Yeah, well, I mean, he started out way back when I was doing Animal Man, and Magic Lantern first turned up there. So it was kind of a nod back to the very first story that I did, and this is kind of the last monthly book I'm likely to do with superheroes. So there was an intention to pull all those threads together, because he's been around in my life for a long time, doing very little.
See, you read a couple hundred comic books and you forget about things like that. Go on, Liam.
No, his relationship with the Bat Lantern, those two, and the whole Batman's a dick in every universe. I can believe we got away with that line.
Absolutely, man. And and going into the news story and stuff now, the Young Guardians. So now we have Owens of a different kind, and certainly a different take than the old standbys.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're kind of digging into that. The stuff that I'm writing now, which comes kind of halfway through the season, is really digging into that and what the differences are and the friction that can cause. So yeah, Hal's in for a bad time as we get towards the middle of the second season. So that's only part of it. His troubles have barely begun.
Yeah, this second season's really. I mean, we had a lot of fun playing with the stylistic ticks between sort of each issue, and because the mood of every issue has been so different. You might go from like horror to classic sci-fi from the 60s to any other sort of more of a 70s vibe or whatever. There's so many different feels and tones, and we had a lot of fun sort of playing with that in the first season, and we're doing that even more in the second season. So it's really sort of swinging like the almost Doctor Who vibe one with the ornitho people on the planet, and that just came out was a lot of fun. But that first issue was, oh my God, I nearly broke myself drawing that 30-page opener of the season with that. I thought, because I was going to try and do less detail for the second season, and I read the script, it was like, damn it, I know I'm going to go crazy on the detail on this one, with the spread with me and Grant sitting at the bar in the bottom left corner, but behind us are all these characters, just there's a little story.
You've got to come in swinging big on season 2, so there's no.
Oh my God!
You have to do it.
Well, you're succeeding, guys. I missed that cameo.
Yeah, I mean, as Liam said, the first half of season 2, they're all each story's kind of standalone, and they're all quite experimental, whether in the art or the writing. And I kind of love them, and then. Yeah. After that little run of Earth stories, it gets really quite visceral, which I'm excited about. It gets more and more visceral as the stories progress, but it kind of goes in a direction I don't think anyone will expect.
I congratulate you guys for finding new things to do with Green Lantern, because truly, I think, and everything that Jeff Johns brought in expanding the core and getting into the different colored rings and stuff like that. And, all of the books that were born from that. Again, I can appreciate, any writer or artist coming in and going, well, what's there? And in fact, your own reluctance, Grant, of what is there new to say about Green Lantern? And yet you guys are finding ways. And truly, man, I mean, this is just fantastic. I loved in particular the aliens that were, taking over the humans and stuff, while Eve and Hal and everybody were jailed during issue 2, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just
definitely. I mean, I'm glad we found a way to do it. But honestly, I look at Jeff's stuff and it's just my heart breaks, because I'll be like, oh my God, he's just got everything. This is so perfect, and and he enhanced the franchise so much. So you look at that stuff and it kind of, I'm like, oh my God, how can you possibly do something beyond this? And I don't think you could, which is why we really chose to make it more small scale. Ultimately, it is just procedurals, it's domestics. There's a squabble between two people. There's some creature has lost another creature. So all the problems are kind of small scale, but the beings and the entities that Hal Jordan is dealing with are on this epic cosmic scale. And I think that's what gives it the different flavour. That's what we went for, because we just couldn't. You can't get past the monolith as Jeff Johns' Green Lantern, because it's so immense and so thorough in its examination of that character.
Yeah, it's true, and I know Jeff's really enjoying what we're doing too. He mentioned it to me when we bumped into each other in LA a while back, and he's I think he's just appreciating that it's a sort of complete left turn from what he was doing, rather than trying to, tag an extra thing on or another chapter or pulling from that. I think it's funny that because Grant says, we went small, but in going small, it still almost became its own kind of epic, because we're hopping around planet and planet, and it's got a, for me anyway, although the sort of monolithic connection of what he did with the core and the Green Lanterns and everything is unavoidable, for me it feels like we've given it space, if you know what I mean. It feels like a massive universe rather than a massive story.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. I mean, again, not just in our universe, or I should say, not in just the DC universe proper, Earth 1 or Earth 0, I'm not even sure these days, post-Rebirth. But yeah, man, I mean, all these alternate universes and stuff. Another character, and I loved the design and the idea of it, is the Magic Lantern, kind of Radio Lantern. I'm looking at my list. Radio Lantern, kind of a Batmite for Green Lantern, huh?
Well, he was a kind of a follow-up to a story that I did with Mark Miller back in the day in Flash, when we took over for a year for Mark Waid, while for some reason Mark Waid took over for me in Justice League, and we were trying to have less work, but we both ended up with more work. But yeah, Mark and I did a run on Flash, and there was a character in there who was slightly based on the Sonic the Hedgehog thing called Crackle. And he was a super speed character who had to race the Flash. So I just figured we'd created that radio world back then, and I thought, well, that'd be fun, to just, especially in our first issue, we wanted to show the scale of the Guardians operation, and that it's happening all across the Spectrum. We didn't want to use all the different Spectrum characters that Jeff had created, but we at least wanted to hint at that, and to hint at something wider, where there's ultraviolet and invisible Spectrum, or on giant scale or on microscopic scale. That the Guardians
or even
on all of these scales.
Or even rumours that spread by word of mouth, even those ideas.
Yeah.
But that Flash run was amazing, Grant. I was a huge fan of what you guys did on that. A couple other elements that I imagine you're going to explore in the second season. These antimatter lanterns that we saw at the end of season 1. Obviously, that's coming back. And, man, that's kind of, again, an interesting tie to the whole Crisis, concept and everything, and Final Crisis in particular, right?
Well, it's to try and tie into the feeling of all of that, the sense of constant alarm in the DC universe. And so, we're building up to a bunch of things, and obviously the antimatter guys are coming back, and Carol Ferris from Earth 11 has come back.
Okay.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff. We're kind of trying to tie up every single loose end or plot line that may be left dangling. So the whole idea is to make it pretty complete, that when you read these, 2 seasons, it'll be a pretty tight story on its own.
I wanted to ask you about a couple of stories beyond the Green Lantern stuff. And Liam, your collaboration with Greg Rucka on Wonder Woman, that was spectacular, man. Really, really great stuff.
Thank you.
Tell me about that run in particular, because obviously, different character, different feel, absolutely.
It's a delight working with Greg. It's just, it's completely, Greg's way of telling the story is very character-based and sort of almost a slow burn. It's much more dialogue-driven and character-driven. So it was, for that one, it was all about, really getting inside Diana's head and finding out about Themyscira and her origins and, all of that, especially with the back and forth with Nicholas Scott. Whereas I think with the Green Lantern, it's just thunders along from issue to issue, almost page to page sometimes, or even panel to panel. It's like whole stories that you'd see. You could write a whole 4-issue miniseries around a single panel that we've drawn in some of the issues, So it has got a very, very different vibe and pace and energy to it. And a completely different mindset. I absolutely adore working with Grant because, as I say, every single time I get a script, I'm I get the biggest smile by the end of it. Sometimes it takes a little while to pull all of it together in my head to see where he's going because he's so far ahead of us in his thinking. I have to try and catch up with him. But I just find it really exciting. I'm going to be very sad when we eventually come to the end of it, but also satisfied, and I'll probably sleep for about 2 months.
Great. Are your scripts like Alan Moore's? I mean, we all know the reputation of Alan Moore's scripts, where beyond the dialogue, that the descriptions really are intense. And I would imagine, because again, your imagination.
No, I've heard and I've seen some of them, and I'll go into detail if I think it's warranted. There was a 3-page panel description in All-Star Superman of the Bottle City of Kandor. But I think with these ones, if I know the art as well, it's kind of, I've got ideas in my head and I'll sketch something out, or I'll spend a long time describing a culture and maybe just leaving that to Liam to develop the artifacts of the culture. So there's a kind of give and take. Action stuff you can do in a few pages. If you've got a whole, a setting or an environment or a culture to describe, then it's worth taking time. So it's probably a little bit in between. And also I have all kinds of digressions about, where these ideas came from or why I got into that character or who gave me this notion.
Yeah, no, the scripts are a real joy. There was I think issue 1. There was a 4-page panel description. So that might be your record. That was
yeah, maybe
the Vegas
was that
planet.
the casino? That was a description of a
yeah. And I thought, how am I going to fit all of that in one panel? But I sort of challenge accepted and sort of jumped on it. And what I've realised as well with Grant's scripts is that all of those little details are valid. There's a reason for them, and they often come back. So it might only be one other panel further down the line, but there's going to be a reference to these guys more pretty much at some point later on. So if you miss it out, if you skimp on those details, it can sort of cause a bit of a headache later on. It's best to put it all in.
Yeah,
so I tried to do that.
Ruin the story and destroy a child's day.
No.
Grant,
and honestly, it gives it fun though, and also the thing there is like I do all of that, and then I try to add extra ones as well, So it's Bill Sienkiewicz says he tries to plus a story, and I try to do that too, and add a little bit more if I can, if there's any room.
Well, clearly there is, because
and the collaboration lies in what I can say. It may describe a casino for ages. But otherwise, you might just have to say, because then I get to know Liam and how he works, and I can just say there's this huge hall filled with alien Green Lanterns, and he goes to town and designs 90% of them. So it kind of that's where you get it. You can start to suggest and just I don't have to do the hard work. I can just say, well, imagine an entire culture that's based around this, and Liam has to do all the research and the hard work.
Grant, this is my first chance to talk to you about Multiversity, and what an incredible story that was. And man, you introduced so many fantastic ideas, and every issue it's like, oh man, I would love to see 12 issues of that universe and everything. Is there, first of all, congratulations on that story, because I think it really achieved what you were trying to do. But absolutely, man. But would you ever go back to, and as you have in this story, touched on some of the things you introduced in Multiversity, but would you ever, want to go back to some of these individual worlds and do longer stories?
I don't know. Honestly, I worked them all out. I'm getting tired. I think it's 10 issues, not 12, but of Pax Americana, and there's some really good stuff in there, So I did work them all out, but I just don't know. I mean, there's other things come up, and you find yourself doing other projects or other media, and the ones that are happening now are the ones that are fun. So I don't know. That it feels like Multiversity was almost done and dusted, even though it left all these trails. It would be nice if someone else just followed them and spared me the hard work.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Hey, as we wrap up, guys, I'm really interested in how you guys are handling the current status quo. I mean, we're feeling it globally, and if you had anything you wanted to say to the readers and stuff, I wanted to give you both the opportunity. So, Liam, I'll let you really, how are things going? I hope your family is okay, and anything you want to share with the audience regarding the current status quo.
Honestly, the way I view it is, the best things I've ever done in my entire life, literally without exception, have come out of some sort of adversity, whether that's, work drying up or having to just really dig in and dig deep and try and find a way through whatever the situation was. And that has that's sort of given rise to 2 publishing companies, 3 novels, and projects that are very, very sort of close to my heart. And they all came in times like this, when you're challenged. On the other side of it, it's brought my family together. So my son had moved to San Diego, and he'd literally just been there for 6 weeks and started work. And obviously that work didn't pan out. Now he's home again. So we're making the most of all of us being home, and we're having fun doing. In England, they have a thing called Desert Island Discs, which is like, so you pick 8 of your favorite tracks, and so on a Friday we'll have pizza and beer and pick 8 tracks and put a playlist together, and and basically have fun like that. And it's nice. We're making the most of it, of just being together, and I'm making the most of just taking the opportunity to follow up on some other dreams, the because I love to write too. It's a big passion, so I'm writing a bit and just making the most of it. And what else are you going to do? You either grab the moment by the horns and take an opportunity to use the time of not being able to go anywhere, or you just despair, I think, and that's not really an option.
Yeah. Grant, any thoughts?
Grant? You first, don't you go? How are you doing? How's you been getting on first?
Me? I'm doing okay, man. I'm doing the same thing Liam is. Honestly, I'm expanding the podcast, doing some live streaming, working on some projects. I really want to do a narrative storytelling podcast, and I'm a boxing guy. I actually covered boxing for 16 years in print and broadcast.
Oh, that's cool.
And I really think that period after Joe Louis's retirement, when the mob really took over boxing, up until Ali, when Ali beat Sonny Liston, I think that's a fascinating period, and it really is the Sopranos meets Quiz Show, meets Rocky in a lot of ways, and I think there's a true story there to be told. So that's kind of something I'm buzzing with. So that's it's an interesting period. Like you say, it's a period people don't visit. It's a place to look that's got interesting stuff going on that most people don't think about.
Yeah,
man. So I don't. Yeah, how about you, Grant? I hope everything's going okay. And
no, here honestly, we're doing good. But I live in the country, so it's kind of business as usual. My entire life has been in social isolation, self-isolation. Writing that's how it is. So it hasn't been so hard as it's been on other people. I think it's the people who are on the front line, like the working people, the care workers, the working poor. They've got a totally different version of it. The rest of us who are at home and working can almost have a utopian, hopeful. I think it's great that people are getting together and being kinder to one another.
Agreed.
But on the actual streets, on the actual front lines, it's quite hellish. So I think the best thing we can do is, think about the people who are really out there on the front lines of this, who are protecting the rest of us from the worst of it, and just everyone should just try and keep themselves and their families as safe as possible. But really, there are people out there in it who are dying, helping other people who are going to work in the bus in the morning where no one's wearing masks, where there is no protection, and they're seriously, it's genuinely frontline stuff, and those are the people I think we should be thinking about and applauding.
Yeah, amen, man. Yeah, absolutely.
I was just going to say, it's great. In England, we've got a friend whose daughter's a nurse, and he was just saying how emotional it is because every Thursday that everyone's out in the streets just banging their pots and cheering and clapping.
Yeah.
The workers and the care workers in the NHS and anybody who's sort of on, as Grant said, on the front line, and it's become quite a sort of thing, And I
find it quite fascinating and heartening that there is this. It's now become a ritual almost. I'm sure something like it in America and everywhere else will arise, but it's a ritualistic thing, and people are spontaneously out on the streets, banging gongs and yelling and clapping for what is essentially a huge nurturing, caring spirit. And I find that kind of fascinating, especially when the churches of the old gods are vacant right now.
Yeah.
People are spontaneously applauding a much more nurturing spirit, a much more caring and kind of spirit.
It's funny that we haven't got it here, but I'm hearing from because we've still got our old house in Derby, and they call it like the Five Streets. It's a community of just this community basically of 5 streets, and they're doing things like all houses are getting window boxes full of flowers, and they're beautifying the streets and making it so that anyone looking out the windows is just seeing this eruption of color and light and life, even though they can't go anywhere. And I love those kind of, like Grant said, spontaneous, ritualistic kind of approaches to this weird time we're in, and it is a community thing.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
But as I always say, I think that to focus on the community aspect, I think that's the main thing, is that if this can foster a sense of community, because it really isn't any alien invasion, there is an aggressive organism attacking the entire human social body. So you can see it as this is the thing that maybe it'll shock us into just a moment recognizing our similarities rather than our differences, which have been, that's how the discourse has been for the last 20 years, I think, has been about difference and division, and this might change that. But that's just a utopian way of looking at something. Like I say, on the streets, in the hospital wards, this is visceral, this is real life, and we can hope for the future all we like, but there's people dealing with it right now for real.
Yeah. Agreed, man. Yeah, and I've got friends in the healthcare profession here in Chicago and in the States that are really literally face to face with this thing. And but again, I think Liam, I agree with you, man, that it is times of despair that a lot of creatives sometimes come up with their best work. And certainly, guys, you guys started one of your best works prior to the current status quo. It continues now. I know that Diamond is on pause. We're looking forward to Chapter 3 of Season 2. But I can't thank you guys enough for coming on. And I hope we can talk more in the future. Liam, I'd love to talk to you about your novels. And good Lord, Grant, I can think of 30 years of comics that I would love to talk to you about. And it's truly a genuine pleasure.
There's a bunch of stuff we could talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah,
man.
Chat all day.
No, so let's hopefully in the future let's try and if you guys are willing, would love to have you guys back individually, honestly, because I don't mind the ping pong interview, and I think we've had it pretty good. But it would be great to talk to you guys one on one and talk a bit more about your contributions to the culture. And I thank you, and I know the readers thank you as well for entertaining us and providing us with great distractions. If people haven't, I'm sure they have, because I know it's a good seller. But if you haven't, man, you are in for some great fun picking up the Green Lantern run by these two gentlemen, Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp. I thank you greatly for your time.
No, well, thank you. That was a lot of fun, John. Thanks. And I hope people enjoy it. We are trying to do something that kind of gets you out of the real world and into a different place.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so true. It definitely it gives me an escape from the world for a few hours every day. Well, few hours, many long hours every day. But no, thanks for having us. It's been great. It's been a lot of fun. It always is getting on the phone with Grant. It's always a laugh.
How about that conversation today with Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp? A couple show notes before we wrap up for today. We're going to have an interesting conversation with my buddies Tom King and Mike Cronenberg this week about a great comic book documentary called Masters of Comic Book Art. It features Will Eisner, Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, Neil Adams, Bernie Wrightson, and Frank Miller. It's from 1987. Ken Viola directed the film. It's really cool, and it's on YouTube. And if you're interested, I was going to have a live streaming discussion about it with Tom and Mike on Thursday night as part of our long conversation, and would love to hear your comments on that. I also intend to speak to the documentarian, Ken Viola, on a separate word balloon, and if you want to submit questions for that, you can do that as well at john@wordballoon.com or under my Facebook page, John Suntress, or of course at Twitter at JohnWordBalloon. I thought it would be fun. It's only an hour long. It's really an interesting comic book time capsule, given that most of the people that are in it have passed away, with the exception of Frank Miller and Neil Adams. But it's really interesting to hear what their thoughts were back in 1987 when everything was changing. Harlan Ellison is the narrator of the documentary. It's great, and I remember seeing it as a VHS in comic book stores in the 80s and on DVD in the 90s, so it'll be great to talk to the filmmaker Ken and also Tom and Michael about the film and their thoughts on those. So look for that this week, and there's a little take-home assignment and something to watch free on YouTube. because there's several copies of it on YouTube, and would love to hear your thoughts about the movie as well. Thanks again for listening to Word Balloon today. Thank you, League of Word Balloon listeners, for your great support. And also thank you to my buddies at Aftershock for their support as well. Aftershock Comics providing great entertainment always, but certainly in this time when we're looking for another diversion, consider an Aftershock book. Great stuff from people like Cullen Bunn and Marguerite Bennett and Stephanie Phillips and Phil Hester and Tim Seeley and Ryan Kelly with Phil, a great book called Stronghold, Ollie Masters, Paul Jenkins, so many great creators doing some amazing books at Aftershock. Go to their website, you'll find out for yourself, and find full story descriptions in our preview pages at aftershockcomics.com. Thanks again for listening. More great conversations coming this week on Word Balloon. I hope you'll join us for the next conversation. Until next time, Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2020. Stay healthy and stay safe.